Hello and welcome to another episode of Zero BS Estate Agency. Up next, we have someone who's truly elevating the lettings industry, and Angharad Trueman, otherwise known as Harry, is a Lettings Director at Andrews Property Group. Now, with over 14 years of experience under her belt, Harry is a leading voice on maximising returns for landlords whilst upholding the highest ethical standards. But what really sets Andrews apart is their unique ownership by a charitable trust driving a purpose beyond profits. Harry will reveal how this ethical approach, combined with a comprehensive landlord education and professional property management services, creates exceptional value for investor clients. Get ready for a masterclass in elite lettings from one of the best. So Harry, what is the one thing that truly maximises a landlord's property when they go to let their home?
I'd say as a landlord, the best thing that you can do to get great value out of your rental property is to be proactive with regards to the condition of the property. So if you keep that property up to a really good condition, then that means that your tenants are also more likely to look after it. And it means your tenants are more likely to stay for longer. Because as a landlord, the thing that you don't want, especially if you've got a buy-to-let mortgage, is you don't want voids. You don't want that property empty, not making you any money. And actually, if you can keep your tenants happy, if you can keep that property, be proactive about it as well. If it needs new carpets, if it needs a redeck, then sometimes you've got to bite the bullet and you've got to do that. But actually, it could mean that you will end up earning more money off the rent for longer, keeping those tenants happy in there. And that's ultimately why people become landlords, isn't it? They want to make money from those properties. So for me, it's always, you get a good condition property, you'll get good tenants, you look after it, look after your tenants, and ultimately it'll be good for you as an investment.
Yeah, do you know, it's interesting you say that, right? Because I remember the first property that my wife and I rented, when we come to give the property back, and this property was immaculate, by the way. It was a converted barn house. We lived on the first floor. It was absolutely stunning. It cost us 600 quid a month, right?
Wow.
Peanuts, right? And the landlords wrote us a letter saying it's cleaner now than when I gave it to you in the first place. Now, admittedly, I was ex-military, right? But the point is, you are so correct, because we actually rent the current house that I'm living in right now, and we absolutely treat it like it's our own. And we do that because the landlord absolutely treats us like family. Yeah. And so when it comes to when we move out of this property, I guarantee you, we are also going to be speaking and assisting the landlord in getting the very best tenants. So, because we feel invested because of the way in which the landlord's treated us.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what you want to go for as a landlord. And we always say about landlords with the first let, get it professionally cleaned. Okay, get it professionally cleaned, put it on, get an invoice to prove that you've had it cleaned. And landlords say, well, that's a cost, I'm not going to get that back. But actually you are, because the tenant's more likely to return it in that condition. They have to return it. You can claim from their deposit, but also they're more like, if they walk into that house and they, on the first day, and everything is spotless, they're going to be like, wow, this landlord really wants to look after me. I'm a landlord, and I had a tenant change this week. My husband went to the property, got the oven trays, brought them home, washed them himself, because he was like, I want to make sure this property is sparkling for the new tenants to go in, so that they look after it, and if there's a problem, they come to me and I can get it fixed quickly, rather than it's the old thing, isn't it? If you give someone something that's rubbish, they're not going to think it's special. They're not going to look after it. And that's ultimately going to affect the landlord's pocket.
Yeah.
So for me, it's so important. It's to making sure that investment, it really works for you and makes as much money as possible.
And so basically, I've always ever done sales, right? But when I've been a branch manager, and when I've been asked to listen, I can't make the actual viewing, say maybe it's the lettings manager or one of the lettings negotiators, John, can you do it for me? I'd be walking up the road with potential tenants, and I'd be saying, right, guys, listen, if you like this place and you're going to be making an offer, right, I'm going to say to you that you should have, if needs be, because I've never seen this flat that we're going to see now in like Queensway or Paddington or something. If we're now going there and like there are things in here you don't like the look of, then put that forward as part of your offer, right?
Yeah.
And what happened is that the level of transparency, but the level of integrity and the truth that the actual tenants then saw, they then didn't feel under pressure. The tone was set out the right way. So in the sense that
Yeah.
they felt that they could actually ask questions and say things. So they knew when they did sign that contract, they were walking into a home that literally was now their home, not just student digs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really important. I think that goes towards promoting this adult conversation that should be happening between landlords and tenants. There shouldn't be this whole, Rachmanism, overlord sort of thing that sometimes landlords get accused of. It's an adult to adult conversation. So as an adult, you're going to take that property. You're thinking, oh, can I live here? Actually, this thing could be cleaned a bit, or this room needs a bit of a redeck. You have that conversation with the landlord in advance. That's on your offer, and then that means that going forward, the expectations have been managed, haven't they? The landlord's got that sorted. Everything's fresh to start with. You know where you stand. You've got to return it like that when you move out, and you've got to look after it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, that really goes towards this promoting this more adult conversation between landlords and tenants. I think it's really important.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, I mean, look, the guys listening right now, landlords or people that own property that are actually going to be looking to let those properties out. If you're in an area where Andrews exists as a business, very quick story. I was asked to sell a property, which I couldn't do because it was outside my area at the time. But I did interview 8 agents in Colindale, and 3 at the top. But the ones that stood out for me was Andrews as a business, right? Those guys there sang off exactly the same hymn sheet in terms of elite level estate agency, marketed a flat that had a £28,000 lease extension plus 40 grand's worth of work that needed to be done for it. They gave me a strategy and a plan, executed that strategy and a plan, and achieved 248 grand after marketing the flat for 225. They were incredible. So, and Harry, I mean, look, you're obviously, this is why I'm loving the fact that you're on for exactly the same business. It seems off the same elite level estate agency mindset that a lot of other agents do. But your depth and breadth though within this industry goes way back, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been at Andrews a year now, but I've been in the industry about 14 years, and I've worked for tiny independents, worked for enormous corporates. I work for a small corporate now. For 5 years, I ran a large independent myself as managing director. We had 5 branches, 40 staff. So I've seen it all really when it comes to lettings. There's not much that happens now, and I'm like, oh, this is new. Like I've seen a lot, and actually coming to Andrews now, it's been really refreshing because we're owned by a charity, Andrews, and it really does. People talk about purpose in business, but actually this is our purpose. So we exist to give back to that charity so that they can go off and do some great things with regards to housing. People are always surprised about this.
Wow, I never knew that.
Not enough people know this.
Do you know what? I never, ever knew that. I just thought it was business owners with the right levels of integrity and their moral compass in the right place. It didn't occur to me that actually owned by a charity. That's now the reason why you guys have the elite level attitude.
Yeah, and it honestly runs through everything we do. So we were set up by a guy called Cecil Jackson Cole back in the 1940s. He very much believed that business should feed charity, that they should go hand in hand. So he set up APG, and he also which is Andrews Property Group, and he also set up Andrews Charitable Trust. When he died, he bequeathed Andrews Property Group to Andrews Charitable Trust. So we operate to give money back to the trust. They'll go off and they do some great stuff with housing with it, and young people, getting people into work and things. They do some great stuff, but it feeds through everything we do. So I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were talking about a sales value actually, and they'd gone out to shadow them, and they were saying, oh, this guy, he was so nice. And he was so knowledgeable. He knew exactly what he was talking about. And it was this old couple. They were in their 80s. They had a bungalow. They were a bit like scared about what to do. And they were asking him, is now the right time? Should we sell our property now? They were a bit like concerned about it. And the person I was talking to said, any other business, especially a corporate, that valuer would have heard those words and they would have gone in for the kill and they would have taken that property. But actually, this valuer, he spoke to those vendors and he basically talked them through it. And they came to the realization now probably wasn't the right time for them, and they walked away. And that's the sort of we actually care about the people that we deal with, which is amazing. And you would never hear that in some of the other big corporates. That sort of small advantage hadn't been taken advantage of, and yeah, it's very different being in Andrews to other agents, I can tell you that.
Yeah, because because I understand it, right? Even a business that is owned by a charity like yours, I that's now just my estimations of Andrew's gone even higher, right? Um, you're still going to have KPIs. You're still going to
Yeah,
have, the business ethos to be successful, but
yeah,
actually, it's being done the right way,
yeah,
winning the right way. And I always say, I'd rather lose winning, which is what the valuer has done. Then
yeah,
he's lost winning, if that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, because he's done the right thing, and when it is the right time for that couple, they'll come back.
There is ethos and energy of individuals who want to do estate agency the right way.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to hear that actually there is an organization that charity first.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So it's a group, it's a collective of people that are not just relying on because there are some phenomenal individuals in those corporates that you talk about, and those corporates are all about KPIs, KPIs, KPIs. But there are some fantastic people working within those businesses that
Oh yeah,
probably shouldn't be
100%.
inside that business. Yeah. But you personally, though, what was it that attracted you to Andrews?
So I'd known about Andrews for quite a while. They were always quite strong in my local patch where I worked. And I also knew about the charity elements. That was always very interesting to me about how that operates. But I'd also seen that Andrews has been on a bit of a journey, and I'd seen some decisions had been made by people who worked at Andrews, and I was a bit sort of interested in why those decisions had been made at the time. And we in the last year we've made a lot of changes internally, and for me it was the challenge of getting those changes embedded and getting us to grow our market share and get back to the strength that we once had within Andrews. So for me, it's always, I only ever take a job because of the challenge involved in it. It's always, I did 5 years as MD in a business, changed it totally, and then was like, okay, right, what next now? What do I do next? And this challenge came up, and I said, that is definitely a challenge. There's lots to do there. So that's why I took it, just
Yeah.
to impact, because this is a fantastic business, and we need to make it as strong as possible, because it's a total USP. We're owned by a charity, and we need to make it as strong as possible to keep delivering to that charity and keep making sure that they can go and do good in the
Yeah,
world.
absolutely. And specifically lettings. Why are you so ingrained in the world of lettings?
Always lettings. Lettings is, I say, if you cut me, I bleed lettings. I've worked with landlords and tenants for so long now that I really don't understand what it would be like working in a different industry. I don't understand how you'd call people like customers rather than tenants and landlords. It's just that's the world I've always been in, and lettings is very legislation heavy. It's very process driven. That really appeals to me. But it's also the fact that it's immediate. So I spent a bit of time when I was MD running a small sales division, and I'd get so frustrated by sales pipelines and conveyancers and how long things took. And I was like, I just love lettings, where you actually can go and view a property and you can move that tenant in the same day. If you really push, if you really get a wiggle on, you could get that tenant in the same day. And I like that immediacy. Like, I think that's what appeals to me as well. So yeah, it's the process, it's the legislation, but it's the fact that it's quick, and you can see results really quickly as well.
But the legislation wise, though, that is for a lot of landlords. Sometimes a landlord may be an accidental landlord.
Yeah.
Sometimes a landlord may just have just 3 properties that they inherited. How far do you go in sort of terms of like speaking with your landlords about legislation? Because legislation seems like it's really tough in lettings.
It is, yeah. It's definitely grown over the last 10, 15 years. And I think part of my job is, along with being Lettings Director at Andrews, I'm also President-elect at Property Mark.
Hmm.
So I've become President in June of this year. And a lot of the work that I do with landlords is educating them. It's talking to them about their legal responsibilities and helping them understand how to be a better landlord, helping them understand how to abide by the legislation that perhaps might be quite new for them. So we do a lot of work with that within Andrews. We have regular blogs and newsletters that go out to our landlord database every single week. We've got a landlord seminar coming up, which is, I've been very clear to the team that It is run by Andrews, but it's not an Andrews seminar. It's an investor seminar. We are there to educate, there to help landlords. I do a lot of stuff on social media. I used to do quite a lot of videos and things. And it's all, for me, it's all about helping landlords be the best that they possibly can be. And that is not just abiding by legislation, but that is being a good landlord, treating their tenants with respect, and, you know, ultimately making some good money off that investment. If you can do all of those things, then you're ticking all the boxes, really, aren't you? So for me, that's what's really important. Be a good landlord, abide by the rules, make some money.
Yeah, totally. I remember we had a guy called Mr. Tan. I don't know if Mr. Tan is still alive, but we literally dropped him like a stone. He kept on doing the same thing as a landlord, and I'm pleased that landlords can't really get away with this anymore. And it's a good thing. Basically, these three girls renting the property from him, one of them wanted to leave. We said, look, allow her to leave. She wants to go back to Germany. If we can replace the actual tenants, then let's just replace the tenant on the tenancy agreement. And he wanted to keep a massive chunk of her deposit for flooring being disrepairable or something like that, is what he said. And we all looked at him in this flat and went, that floor is exactly the same as when these girls moved in. What are you talking about? And it transpired that every other letting before that, other agencies had dropped him as well, because he kept on doing the same thing. He kept on basically saying that they had done something, it's going to cost this amount of money, and he was taking their deposits from them, even though he wasn't actually doing the work himself. It's just disgusting.
It really is. And actually, that's the importance of having inventories, because without an inventory report, you can't confirm the starting condition of a tenancy, and therefore a landlord actually can't confirm that they can claim against that deposit. And if they can't confirm they can, then it's ultimately the tenant's money. So in the eyes of the law, it's the tenant's money until the landlord can prove their claim to it. And without an inventory and a checkout report, there's no way of doing that. So yeah, we still see landlords like that now and again. Thankfully, as I've gone through my career, I see less and less, actually. But there is still rogue landlords out there. And I also think there is not necessarily rogue landlords, but there is landlords who just don't understand. And when you educate them, when you explain to them the process that needs to be gone through, or the legislation that says that you can't do this or you have to do this, most of the time they are, you know, they move on from it and they're grateful for that knowledge. Occasionally they like to think that they know better. But those ones you have to walk away from sometimes, I think.
And so service-wise then, so is it just lettings only? Is it management? Is it... what sort of services do you provide at Andrews?
So, within our letting side, so we have let only. We have let only, which means that we will advertise the property, we'll find you a tenant, we'll do all the stuff at the start, we'll move them in, we'll hand them over to you. You look after them for the rest of the tenancy, you process all their rent. We have Rent Collect, which does what it says on the tin. We will do all that start stuff as well, but we'll also process the rent every month for you. And with that, you can also have something which is our rent and legal protection, which means that we will protect your rent as well for a small amount of money and make sure that you get that rent. So I'm a landlord with the agency, and I have my property managed with RLP. And then the top tier then is our managed service. So that's where we will take all the hassle away from you. We'll do everything. You just sit back and you enjoy the investment. We'll look after the tenants. We'll liaise with you if it's a problem, but we'll get stuff done. We'll process your rent. If the rent isn't paid, we'll chase it. If you get RRP, we'll help with eviction as well. So the manage is really if you just want to... There's different types of investors, isn't there? Some investors want to be really involved. Some people just don't want to. As one of the people who probably knows best, I still have my property managed because ultimately I don't want to have to worry about that. I've got other things to do. Is running a business. So the managed service is really for those people who they want hands off and they just want you to get on with it. Yeah,
because actually it can be quite stressful, right? If you're a landlord and having to try and deal with stuff. So having it managed, personally, I think it's money well spent. Really, because it's the go between the tenant and the landlord, right?
Yeah, and you don't want to be woken up at 12 o'clock at night by your tenant saying, "I've locked myself out. Can you come and let me in?" Like, no. And I always get frustrated when some of my valuers, they come back from evaluation and they're like, "Oh yeah, landlord said they don't want managed because they live next door, so they can deal with it." I'm like, or they live down the street so they can do that. I'm like, that's the most that want to be managed. I don't want my tenant to know I live down the street. They'll be bothering me all the time. Like, that's the most that you want to have managed. Like that's the peak. So I'm like, don't accept that. Like, go back to them and say, you know what's going to happen. As soon as that tenant's got a problem, they're going to be straight knocking on the door, and you'll have just sat down to tuck into your dinner, and they'll be knock knock knock. Can you help me with this?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the managed service is it is more expensive, but it is worth it. If you really want to see that investment as a business decision, and you want to take out all the emotion from it, and you literally look at it as an investment that's going to have a return, then the managed service is the one you want to think of.
And I imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'll imagine as well, when one of your lettings team goes to a property and they're talking about management, they're not just talking about, oh, well, listen, we'll manage it for you, i.e. we just answer a phone if there's a problem with the boiler. You guys are going to be looking at the property probably in depth and going, right, Mr. or Mrs. Landlord, you need X, Y, and Z that are currently missing to make sure you're falling in line with current legislation so you don't get themselves in trouble. You need also X, there's 1, 2, and 3. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, there's the day-to-day activities that you do within management, such as dealing with the tenants, processing the rent, chasing the rent if it doesn't happen. But there's also the legal side of things that you uphold if you're managing. So there's keeping the deposit protected. There is making sure that reminders go out if the gas safety is due, or if the EICR is due. There's the legal element of management, as well as the actions that you take to manage a property. There's the popping out to if the tenants lock themselves out, or if the tenant's got a problem and they just say, can you just come around and have a look at this, because I'm a bit unsure about this problem, just need some eyes on it. There's all of that element of management for a landlord, which you don't really want to worry about ultimately. You don't want to be like, oh, hang on, when's the gas safety due again, because I thought it was April, should we be sorting that out? Like, you don't want to have that conversation. You just want it to know it's taken care of. So for me, I'm the biggest advocate because I run a letting agent, but also I'm a managed landlord. So I know the value that you get in that.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, Harry, thank you so much for coming on this podcast and actually taking us through lettings, which is unusual for this particular channel. But again,
Yes.
it's so important because, you know what, not everybody is a seller. They maybe actually, I want to hold on to my property. How do I do it? So thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Thanks for interviewing me. Great to meet you.